most main streets in America. Unless, that is, you were to drop in on the town our Bill Geist first discovered a few autumns back.
Every fall in Ketchum, Idaho, the first snow signals the seasonal changing of the guard. As thousands of sheep hoof it south, yielding the slopes of the Sawtooth Mountains to herds of human skiers heading north. Ask any sheep herder.
The sheep come up in the spring and go back in the fall. Never changes, year after year.
Push 'em, push 'em, push 'em.
The sheep are happy to head to warmer climes. They go by the thousands, and they don't go quietly. Ketchum and the neighboring town of Haley hold an annual Trailing of the Sheep festival featuring Basque dancers, Peruvian performers, and Scottish bagpipers. It seems an odd mix, but these three ethnic groups have accounted for most of the sheep herders in these parts for the past century and a half.
A lot of the Scots came over as herders and ended up taking their pay instead of in cash, but in sheep. And many of the Basques came over from the Basque country of northern Spain or southern France.
It was a job that they didn't need to speak English in. You know, they're out there by themselves, so they taught the dogs to speak Basque.
Sheep ranchers John and Diane Peavy came up with the idea for the big festival. Just a generation ago, there were still more sheep than people in Idaho. This town of Ketchum here was the hub of a burgeoning sheep industry, and this building, Lane Mercantile, was where all the ranchers came to discuss everything from weather to prices. Ketchum is now a trendy resort town with more art galleries than sheep ranchers. And Lane Mercantile?
This community is growing rapidly, and people are moving here from all over the United States. They would wake up one morning and see sheep out in their yard or going up the street, and they're wondering, what is this? This wasn't in the real estate agreement.
Yeah, 2,000 sheep.
2,000 sheep in my yard. So it was a matter of reaching out and saying, come on out and find out about the place you've moved to.
The Peavies kind of hope the festival promotes understanding among new arrivals who won't mind quite so much finding sheep in their flower beds and having to share the bike path with a few sheep.
I can just walk around all over and she'll bring those sheep behind.
The festival features demonstrations of sheep herding by amazingly talented dogs. And sheep shearing. And displays of old sheep herders' wagons. The sheep herders used to live in these, or?
Yep, they still do.
I think this is about 1960 up on, pretty close to 1960.
They're tours of the hills where history is etched in the bark of aspen trees by shepherds.
It reminds me an awful lot of the old hieroglyphics and the Indian writings that they did on the caves.
There are stories shared.
My father used to say that he felt the closest to God on a hill with a herd of sheep.
Of the drought of 30 and the blizzard of 48.
The snow was 2.5 feet deep, and there was no way you could drive a sheep through that.
And of days at the Basque boarding house.
She fed Ernest Hemingway and Gary Cooper and Bing Crosby.
Where shepherds mingled with celebrities coming to the Sun Valley Resort.
A frying pan with a handle gone and no pot to cook maize.
And musicians play top 40 sheep tunes.
He sent me up a damned old dog. He said her name was Nell. The first time I set her on the sheep, she scattered them all to hell.
All in preparation for the arrival of the stars of the show, the sheep. Metro traffic reports a snarl on Highway 75 north of Ketchum this morning with heavy, slow-moving volume in both northbound and southbound lanes, leaving behind slick highway. Right-hand lane. Thank you. Appreciate your cooperation. Not to mention half-hour backups at the river crossing.
Where is the sheep?
Once in town, they do obey the speed limit, but run the lights. They're sheep. One does it, they all do. A color guard leads them right down Main Street in this full-blown sheep parade. This wall of wool, almost frightening in its proportions, surges into town, met not by fear, but by a minister.
I bless you. And now, with God's blessing and filled with God's love, you go and be the best sheep you can be.
So blessed, they then pass by the assembled throngs, here to pay tribute to sheep, each in his own way. Not to worry, these sheep will never be on trade. These are all ewes, heading south to southern Idaho and on to sunny California, to dine all winter on alfalfa al fresco, and to give birth to lambs and perhaps some wool sweaters, worn by the skiers the sheep will replace when they return to the slopes in spring. As always.
That's me with his whole family.
You on a farm.